Well, I would say first, it shouldn't come as any surprise that we're in regular touch with social media platforms. Well, first, we are in regular touch with these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff, but also members of our COVID-19 team. So we are regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health. That is an example of the kind of information that we are flagging or raising. We've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. That is an example of the kind of information that we are flagging or raising. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook.
A federal judge in Louisiana is limiting the Biden administration from contacting social media companies, the judge saying the administration likely violated the First Amendment when it pressured those companies to remove certain posts.
Essentially, what a lot of these allegations have to do with is the government flagging posts that violate the standards that these social media companies have independently set up. So if they find something that, they're flagging this post and say, hey, they're not explicitly saying you need to take this down. Often there's sort of an implicit implication there, if saying just bringing this to your attention, and then the social media company can decide independently whether or not that violates their ongoing standards.
Sure, buddy.
But it's a really new area and a really complicated one, and one that there should be close guardrails on to make sure that the government is not overreaching. But the idea that the government can't have any communication with these social media companies, I don't think is really a world that we would want to live in. And the FBI side, it's something I followed really closely, and there's just not a lot of evidence that the FBI was encouraging social media companies to take down posts.
My name is Matt Taibbi. I've been a reporter for 30 years and a staunch advocate of the First Amendment. I'm here today because of a series of events that began late last year when I received a note from a source online. It read, "Are you interested in doing a deep dive into what censorship and manipulation was going on at Twitter?" A week later, the first of what became known as the Twitter Files reports came out. What we found in the files was a sweeping effort to reverse that promise and use machine learning and other tools to turn the internet into an instrument of censorship and social control. Unfortunately, our own government appears to be playing a lead role. We saw the first hints in communications between Twitter executives before the 2020 election, when we read things like "flagged by DHS" or "please see attached report from FBI for potential misinformation." This would be attached to an Excel spreadsheet with a long list of names whose accounts were often suspended shortly after. We learned Twitter, Facebook, Google, and other companies developed a formal system for taking in moderation requests from every corner of government, from the FBI, the DHS, the HHS, DOD, the Global Engagement Center at State, even the CIA. For every government agency scanning Twitter, there were perhaps 20 quasi-private entities doing the same thing, including Stanford's Election Integrity Partnership, NewsGuard, the Global Disinformation Index, and many others, many taxpayer-funded. A focus of this fast-growing network, as Mike noted, is making lists of people whose opinions, beliefs, associations, or sympathies are deemed misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. That last term is just a euphemism for true but inconvenient.
To what degree can the White House, even if that agenda is for ostensibly public health, to what degree can they engage in a pressure campaign on Facebook, Twitter, other social media companies to advance their message, even if their message is backed up by medicine and science? And then afterwards, perhaps more importantly, what kinds of consequences can they imply or otherwise suggest might happen to those who don't listen?
So I think this is a little bit of a corrective, but I clearly feel that in the end, the decision will be refined somewhat because government has to have the right to have its own free speech, to push back when they see things on social media they think are dangerous.
Yeah, and the government would argue we were just colluding, if you want to put it that way, to stop bad information, to getting in the hands of people and threatening their well-being.
You keep wondering, when is America going, and when are Americans going to say, what is wrong with these people? What has happened to this country in the sense of what the Republicans have done to this country? You can take the MAGA judges. You can take the judge down in Louisiana who recently just basically voided the First Amendment of this country. Perhaps voided it.
It's inaccurate, dishonest, and, in a word, dong water.
It is an extraordinarily broad, even radical ruling in many ways, made by one trial judge before a trial and before there was even discovery in the case, listening to two very conservative Republican attorneys general basically putting into the law the conspiracy theory idea that somehow the government's been censoring social media and keeping conservative voices off. This is a potentially very significant threat to the ability to stop election interference.